It is 11:22 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 23rd day of April 2026, and this is episode 1306 of Bitcoin and Am I Late? So got one of my family members not feeling well this morning, so you got to take care of your own before you take care of anything else. Because of that, I'm just going to bounce right into today's stories. We're going to start off with CoinDesk, and yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter show, but Sam Bankman-Fried, you remember him, right? The dude from FTX, the guy that got thrown in prison for 25 years. Well, he's been trying to get a new trial. And as of today, Sam Bankman-Fried has withdrawn his retrial motion. He believes that he would not get a fair trial. You stole all the money. What fairness are you looking for there, pal? Olivier Acuna, writing for CoinDesk. So, Sam Bankman-Fried, founder of collapsed crypto exchange FTX, has withdrawn his request for a retrial over doubt that he would get God, I'm having all kinds of problems today. That he would get a fair hearing in a letter to the judge overseeing his case. Bankman-Fried, who is serving 25 years after being convicted on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy tied to FTX's 2022 collapse, said that he may renew the motion after his direct appeal and a related request for reassignment are decided. The motion for a new trial was filed by his mommy, Barbara Fried. I love these names, man. She's claiming new evidence in the case would justify a reset. Bankman-Fried said he largely drafted the motion himself while detained at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn with limited assistance. Although clarifying he is the author of the letter to the judge, he did consult his lawyers and his mommy and daddy since it concerns them both, he said. Quote, they made editorial and organizational suggestions, some of which I incorporated into the motion, Bankman-Fried said. They also helped print it, as I no longer had access to a word processor. This is starting to sound really desperate, man. I also shared earlier drafts with a New York attorney who was originally hired to represent me on Rule 33 motion before I decided to represent myself. They had no significant input into the ultimate motion, end quote. A Rule 33 motion is a formal request to a federal court for a new trial based on new evidence or in the interest of justice. The appeal is currently before the U.S. Circuit or Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. During oral arguments in November, his attorney, Alexandra Shapiro, argued that the trial was fundamentally unfair, including limits placed on what Bankman-Fried could present to the jury. Okay, this just sounds sad, man. I mean, what is with this? Okay, so the first thing that I want to get to is why he said this. Although clarifying that he is the author of the letter to the judge, he did consult his lawyers and his parents since it concerns them both. What does that mean? I'm kind of confused. That coupled with the following. They made editorial and organizational suggestions, some of which I incorporated into the motion. They also helped print it, as I no longer had access to a word processor. Dude, you can get shit printed in prison. Even if you can't get it printed inside of the prison, you can draft a letter and you can mail it. Mail it to mommy and daddy and have them type it out on their word processor. There's something about this that smells weird. Not bad, not good, just weird. There's a desperation in these quotes from Sam Bankman-Fried. I think he's losing it. I do. I think he's in federal federal prison. I think he's used to a very cushy life of leisure, and the kinds of people that he's hanging out in, Club Fed is not washing well with him. And I think he's losing it completely. So will he ever get a new trial? I hope not. It is very clear that Sam, after that trial, after all the evidence was presented, it's very clear that he did what he was accused of doing. There should be no retrial, and there certainly shouldn't be any kind of reprieve from President Trump. So let's just leave that weirdness behind and get into like the rest of the real world, where timely action is critical. Crypto industry presses the Senate to act as U.S. market structure talks drag on. This is Naga Avan Nemeo from The Block. A broad coalition of crypto trade groups, venture firms, and digital asset companies is pressing the Senate Banking Committee to advance a markup on market structure legislation, arguing the United States cannot afford any more delays as other jurisdictions push ahead with clearer rules. In a letter dated April the 23rd, that'd be today, and led by the Crypto Council for Innovation and the Blockchain Association, the groups urged Chairman Tim Scott, who heads the Banking Committee, Housing and Urban Affairs, and he's also the ranking member Elizabeth Warren, Digital Assets Subcommittee Chair Cynthia Lummis, and the ranking member Ruben Gallego to notice and proceed toward a markup of the Clarity Act. Pausing just to say, if you listened earlier this week, you knew that the markup phase of the Clarity Act had been stalled. That was actually by request that they just not do it. And now this entire coalition of people are coming together and they're going, no, we need this. We're going to need this now before we get left in the dust by, God forbid, the European Union. Continuing, the coalition praised the committee's work on several issues now at the heart of the negotiations, including preserving transaction-based consumer rewards tied to payment stablecoins, clarifying Securities and Exchange Commission and Commodity Futures Trading Commission authority over tokenized financial instruments, protecting developers and service providers of decentralized technologies, as well as creating a predictable federal baseline across every single one of the 50 states of the United States. The letter also cast the bill as a test of whether the U.S. wants to remain central to digital finance. Quote, with thoughtful markup structure legislation, Congress has the opportunity to extend that leadership into the next generation of financial technology, the group wrote. The signers stressed that agency guidance, while helpful, is not enough. Quote, the United States cannot risk a return to the previous era of regulation by enforcement, which perpetuated uncertainty for both builders and market participants, the letter said. It added that, quote, timely action is critical as the lack of a comprehensive United States framework risks pushing investment, jobs, and technological development offshore, end quote. The letter was signed by a long list of crypto heavyweights, including Coinbase, Circle, Kraken, Uniswap Labs, Ripple, Andreessen Horowitz, Chainlink Labs, Chainalysis, OKX, Paradigm, and Block, alongside advocacy groups, campus chapters, and state-level crypto organizations. The Block reported this week that negotiations around the Senate's crypto package had reached what one source called a good spot on the question of stablecoin rewards. Such news arrived even as ethics concerns around President Donald Trump's crypto ties were expected to reemerge. Another report from TD Cowen flagged 5 hurdles still hanging over the bill beyond the stablecoin yield issue, reflective of how much of the legislative fight now extends beyond one headline dispute. Earlier this month, the Block also reported that an April target for Senate action had begun to slip. Still, there are some signs that some lawmakers think the window has not closed. According to journalist Eleanor Terrett, Senator Bernie Moreno said at a Washington event on Wednesday evening that he believes crypto market structure legislation will be completed by the end of May. Moreno also reportedly dismissed bank objections to stablecoin yield as a lot of noise in the system, though his office did not respond to comment on whether a markup could slip into next month. Well, who knows where this thing is going to go. And even though it is a list of some of the shittiest companies in the space that have signed this letter, I still don't look at it as like the letter that was the New York agreement signed by some of the same people. This is different, but still, they're not wrong. It will, like, if we can't get clarity for all these banks and all these hedge funds and all these retirement plans and everybody that has anything to do with this stuff, it will push shit offshore. And see, this is what really, really bothers me about, I hate to say it this way because you're going to think that I don't like Orange Man, and that's not what this is. I'm calling balls and strikes. These are just facts. He blew the midterms. He blew the midterms. Virginia's already in a state where, well, the Democrats have basically won. This is going to continue. If Clarity Act successfully stalls long enough for the midterms to go through without any action, you can kiss Clarity goodbye until the administration after whatever comes in next. And as much as I understand the argument that we don't need the Clarity Act because, Bitcoin, I get it. And a lot of me agrees with you. But if we want to push this shit forward, you're going to have something around the Clarity Act. And I don't like regulation any more than the next guy. But it's not that I want regulation, and which is exactly what the Clarity Act is. But what I'm looking for is to clear the fog of war, to clear the confusion away from all these people that want to figure out how they're going to proceed in this industry. I don't want the regulation as much as I want people to go, I know exactly what we can do and exactly what we cannot do, and we're going to work within this framework. But if Clarity stalls until midterms, you can kiss it goodbye because it sure as shit isn't going to pass after that. And we're gonna be right back to a Gary Gensler style, basically legislation through judicial action. And none of us actually want that because it's just gonna drag the bear market for Bitcoin on and on and on and on. Now the rest of the coins I do not care about. They can all burn in hell for all I care. But this would affect Bitcoin bigly. And I don't want that. I'm kind of tired of the 70s, and I'm sure you are too. And it makes me hungry for Sats for Snacks from my friend Permanerd. You can get freeze-dried pineapple, you can get freeze-dried peaches, you can get freeze-dried mangoes, freeze-dried strawberries. Everything's freeze-dried. Dude, I mean bananas. Freeze-dried bananas are awesome. They're like potato chips, only sweeter, right? And the freeze-dried texture just basically melts in your mouth. So go to sats4snacks.com. That's sats4snacks.com and use the code BitcoinAnd for a 2.1% off coupon with the coupon code Bitcoin. And that also lets Permanerd know that I made a sale for him here on the Circle P. It's where I bring plebs just like you with goods and services to plebs just like you who want to buy said goods and services, but you will be buying it in Bitcoin because if you're not selling it in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. Sats4snacks.com. That's sats4snacks.com. Use Bitcoin and for a 2.1% off of your entire purchase price. Andre Cronje, or Cronje, I don't know how you pronounce the guy's name. His flying tulip adds withdrawal circuit breaker after DeFi exploits mount. So we're seeing DeFi protocols start to lock down. Now, I thought they were all decentralized. How can you lock down something decentralized? Oh, well, wait a minute. Maybe they're not all that decentralized. Ezra Reguera, writing for Cointelegraph, says Flying Tulip, a decentralized finance platform founded by DeFi developer Andre Cronje, has added a circuit breaker that can delay or queue withdrawals during normal or rather abnormal outflows as April DeFi losses climbed amid a string of major exploits. According to Flying Tulip's documentation, the mechanism is designed to slow down funds leaving the protocol if outflow capacity is exceeded, giving the team time to investigate suspicious activity and limiting how much an attacker could drain in a worst-case scenario. Flying Tulip said the circuit breaker works differently across products. In the first version of the circuit breaker, used in its perpetual PUT product, withdrawals can revert and users must retry later. In the second version, used in Flying Tulip's stable asset and settlement currency FTUSD, withdrawals are queued and become claimable after a delay instead of being rejected outright. Now, Flying Tulip said that the circuit breaker is built with a fail open design, and that means transactions would still be allowed if the safety mechanism itself were to malfunction. How is this going to be exploited? They keep putting more pipes in the plumbing system, and the more you do that, the easier it is to stop up the drain. Somebody's going to be able to exploit this. They've just expanded their attack vector or their attack surface. This is amazing, man. Flying Tulip. Oh, wait, yeah. The design adds a new layer of protection for the DeFi platform as recent industry exploits exposed risks that extend beyond smart contract code. The added attention to outflow controls comes as recent exploits underscored vulnerabilities tied to signers, infrastructure, and collateral design rather than only smart contract bugs. Amir Haijian, a digital assets researcher at trading firm Keyrock, said the biggest failures in April were increasingly linked to operational and infrastructure weaknesses, including compromised multisigs, configuration flaws, and key leaks. The new mechanism deployed by Flying Tulip is designed to slow abnormal outflows and give the protocol time to respond when losses stem from failures outside of the smart contract itself. Hijan highlighted April's DeFi losses, which has reached $600 million for the first 18 days of the month, with 2 incidents accounting for 95% of that damage. And then they go and talk about those 2 instances. And we've already talked about Drift and Kelp and Volo. So we don't need to rehash any of that crap. So here we get into the all hands on deck, run around the block like your hair's on fire in emergency mode. And this is where some of the more critical mistakes can be made. I don't think this is going to make DeFi less vulnerable. I think it's actually going to make it more vulnerable. Someone somewhere is already figuring out how to fuck with that circuit breaker. And they're using Claude to do it, I guarantee it. And they're going to find some hole, some big gaping hole, because what's happening is you're trying to bolt on a fix to something that has been running. Okay, I was about to say running fine for years. DeFi was never fine. There's always been problems with DeFi. It's really come to the fore over the last couple of days, and now we're seeing all these developers with their hair on fire trying to bolt shit onto something that they thought was kind of fine. You know, there's every once in a while we get a smart contract bug and somebody exploits it. It's not that big of a deal. They kept covering people's losses and everything was fine. But now it's not fine. Now the developers are signaling to us that things are definitely not fine in DeFi land because they're starting to bolt shit on to DeFi that 2 things. A, should never be bolted on to something quote unquote decentralized. And 2, the rapid movement here should really prick up people's ears. And if you're still in DeFi, I don't know how many times to tell you to get out. Dude, just get out. Buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, and we'll run the numbers. CNBC, futures and commodities. I guess shit's breaking loose in the Middle East yet one more day, because Brent North Sea is up another 2.7% to $104.67 a barrel. That's in the danger area for the markets. All right, so West Texas Intermediate is up 2.6% to 95.42. Natural gas not doing well. It's down 4% to $2.61 per thousand, and gasoline is up 2.8% back to $3.45 per gallon you go. Murban crude is up over a point to 104.29 itself, and all the metals are doing poorly today. Palladium taking it on the chin for 5 points in the red. Gold is down a third to 47.35 and 9 dimes. Platinum down 2.6%. Silver is down 2 1/3 to 76 and a dime. Copper is down 1.16% itself. Ag is mostly mixed. We got a big loser. Well, not a big loser, but the biggest loser is rough rice, down a half point, and the biggest winner is coffee, up 4 full points. Live cattle is up 0.16%, lean hogs up 0.7%, and feeder cattle are basically moving sideways. I've noticed something about livestock over the last couple of weeks. That market seems to be cooling down. Doesn't mean that the prices are dropping. It just means we're not seeing really wild swings, so it makes me wonder what the hell's going on in the meat industry at this point. If you guys know, then let me know. And then the S&P is down a third, NASDAQ is down 0.4%, and the Dow is also down a third. But the S&P Mini is up 1/10 of a point, so hurrah, we're all saved. $78,040 for one Bitcoin gives us a $1.56 trillion market cap, and we can only purchase 16.6 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 20,019,566.78 of. Average fees per block are high, 0.03 Bitcoin taken in fees on a per block basis. It's about 35 blocks carrying 57,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 1 sat per VByte. Low priorities get you in at 0.2. Hash rate sitting at 943 exahashes per second, so we've definitely lost the zettahash handle, but that's okay because the amount of power protecting the Bitcoin network is as solid as always. From the Oracle at Delphi, yesterday's episode of Bitcoin, and Nick Dose, dude, dumping 13,050 sats on me. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, but Nick doesn't say anything. Sly Roundabout Way with 4,200 sats himself says, learn to cook. What a great idea. Jason High with 250 says nothing to be discussed with 221 says nothing. And Permanerd with 210 says this boost is generated with AI, Canadian intelligence. I guess I should have said AI. How do you? I used to have a decent Canadian accent when it came to saying the word A. But I can't do it anymore. I'm too old. Nick Dose with another 197 sats says cheers. Nostr Gang with a short row of sticks says absolutely nothing, and that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. American Bitcoin activates 11,000 brand spanking new Bitcoin mining rigs, expanding hash rate capacity. Well, I didn't see it in the hash rate that I just read, but maybe in a couple of days it'll appear. Micah Zimmerman out of Bitcoin Magazine. Shares of American Bitcoin Corporation surged today after the company announced it had completed the energization of more than 11,000 new mining rigs at its Drumheller facility, significantly expanding its operational capacity. The company said that it had brought approximately 11,298 additional ASIC miners online, adding 3.05 exahashes per second to its active hash rate. The deployment marks the completion of a previously announced expansion plan and pushes American Bitcoin's total operational fleet to 25 exahashes per second across almost 60,000 active mining rigs. Including inactive inventory, the firm now owns 89,200 miners capable of producing up to 28.1 exahashes per second. The newly deployed machines operate at an efficiency of roughly 13.5 joules per terahash, improving the overall performance of the fleet. Post-expansion, the company's operational efficiency averages around 14.1 joules per terahash, while its full owned fleet averages approximately 16 joules per terahash. Quote, scaling hash rate is one of the ways we strengthen our position in Bitcoin, said Eric Trump, co-founder and chief strategy officer of the company. He added that the deployment reflects a strategy focused on disciplined capital allocation and rapid execution to grow Bitcoin exposure at scale. And the announcement triggered a sharp market reaction. ABTC shares jumped double digits in early trading. The rally extends a broader upward trend in the stock, which has gained significantly over the past month as investors respond to both operational growth and rising Bitcoin prices. American Bitcoin is a majority-owned subsidiary of Hut 8 Corporation and operates with a business model centered on accumulating Bitcoin through self-mining rather than simply selling production into the market. The company has emphasized producing Bitcoin at costs below spot prices, a strategy it says enhances long-term shareholder value. The Drumheller expansion is part of that approach, combining hardware efficiency with energy cost optimization. And by increasing hash rate while maintaining a relatively low operating cost, the firm aims to scale its Bitcoin holdings per share. So I guess Hut 8 is still not selling very much Bitcoin to cover operational costs, and that's good. The question is, at these prices, how long can that last? And we don't know enough about Hut 8's finances to really make a good get a good bead on where that might go. Now, let's shift over a little bit to AI, because there was a couple of times that I've said something about this whole Claude mythos thing that I kind of thought it was a marketing scheme based in fear. I'm not the only one. Anthropic using fear-based marketing to promote Claude mythos, says Sam Altman. From Decrypt.co and Callan Quinn, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman pushed back against growing alarm over rival Anthropic's powerful new AI model Claude Mythos, suggesting the company is using fear to market the product. Maybe Sam Altman listens to the show. Who knows? Speaking on the Core Memory podcast hosted by tech journalist Ashley Vance, Altman argued that the use of fear-based marketing was geared toward keeping AI in the hands of a smaller group of people. Quote, you can justify that in a lot of different ways. And some of it's real, like there are going to be legitimate safety concerns. But if what you want is like, we need control of AI, just us, because we're the trustworthy people, I think fear-based marketing is probably the most effective way to justify that, according to Sam Altman. He added that while there are valid concerns about AI safety, quote, it is clearly incredible marketing to say, we have built a bomb. We are about to drop it on your head. We will sell you a bomb shelter for $100 million. You need it to run across all of your stuff, but only if we pick you as a customer. Ooh, holy shit. He noted that it was not always easy to balance AI's new capabilities with OpenAI's belief that the technology should be accessible. Anthropic's Claude Mythos model, revealed last month, has drawn a pretty intense attention from researchers, governments, and cybersecurity industry at large, particularly after testing suggested it could autonomously identify software vulnerabilities and then execute complex cyber operations. The model is being distributed only to a limited set of organizations through a restricted program. The rollout reflects a broader divide in the AI industry over how powerful systems should be deployed. with some companies emphasizing controlled access and others arguing for wider distribution to accelerate innovation and understanding of the technology. Mythos has become a focal point in that very debate. The model's capability has been framed by Anthropic as both a defensive breakthrough and a potential offensive risk if it's misused. Early this month, it did identify hundreds of vulnerabilities in Mozilla's Firefox browser during testing and has also demonstrated the ability to carry out multi-stage cyber attack simulations. Now, Anthropic has restricted the access to their system via Project Glasswing, granting select companies, including Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, the ability to test its capabilities. The company has also committed significant resources to supporting open source security efforts, arguing that defenders should benefit from the technology before it becomes widely available. Oh, good Lord. Hold on. There's got a glitch here. The model has also exposed limitations in existing AI evaluation systems, with Anthropic acknowledging that many current cybersecurity benchmarks are no longer sufficient to measure the capabilities of its latest system. That said, a group of researchers claimed last week that they were able to reproduce Mythos's findings using publicly available models. Despite calls within parts of the U.S. government to halt the use of that technology over concerns about its potential applications in warfare and surveillance, the National Security Agency has reportedly begun testing a preview version of the model on classified networks. On prediction market Myriad, owned by Decrypt's parent company Dastan, users put a 49% chance of Claude Mythos being released to the wider public by June the 30th. Altman suggested that rhetoric around highly dangerous AI systems may increase as capabilities improve, but argued that not all such claims should be taken at face value. Quote, "There will be a lot more rhetoric about models that are too dangerous to release. There will also be very dangerous models that will have to be released in different ways. I'm sure Mythos is a great model for cybersecurity, but I think we have a plan we feel good about for how we put this kind of capability out there into the world," end quote. Sam also dismissed suggestions that OpenAI is scaling back its infrastructure spending, saying the company would continue expanding its computing capacity despite shifting narratives. Quote, "I don't know where that's coming from. People really want to write the story of pulling back, but very soon it will be again like OpenAI is so reckless. How can they be spending this crazy amount?" End quote. And for whatever reason, that's the end of the article. It's an interesting quote to end with, but there's something up here. I want to reread this one. "The model has exposed limitations in existing AI evaluation systems, with Anthropic acknowledging that many current cybersecurity benchmarks are no longer sufficient to measure the capabilities of its latest system." That sounds like an even deeper fear tactic, because now we can't even evaluate this. We don't even know how dangerous this thing is. They said it was very dangerous, and they gave us very concrete examples of why they think that Claude Mythos is dangerous. How it discovered a 27-year-old zero-day exploit that was available in, I can't remember what the operating system was, but it's like used heavily. You know, a 10-year-old bug in something else. We had these concrete things that we could point at, and that was scary enough. 27 years old, one of the most most amount of eyeballs, well, not most, but a huge amount of eyeballs on this particular operating system's code, and yet everybody missed it, but not Claude. No, not Claude. And that was scary enough. And now Anthropic is saying that many current cybersecurity benchmarks are no longer sufficient to measure the capabilities of Claude Mythos. So now we don't even have something concrete that we can look at for scariness. I'm totally agreeing with Sam Altman on this one, and I don't even like Sam. I think that dude's kind of like, batshit crazy, but I think he's right. I agree with him. I think this is fear-based marketing. It's just like what Coca-Cola did when they said, old Coke is going away and we're going to make you drink this new shit. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had no intention of keeping, quote, new Coke on the shelves any longer than 6 to 9 months. And I think it actually ended up stretching out into a year. But by then, you couldn't find new Coke. You know, unless it was like a Coca on the shelf of some Coca-Cola memorabilia collector. You couldn't find it. And they just rebranded Coca-Cola as original flavor, or I think it still says original Coca-Cola on it. And it was all based in fear. It was literally our sales are slugging. Sluggish. What can we do? We're saturated on television. Well, how about we tell people we're going to take it away from them? Oh, that was a beautiful shot, man. That was marketing gold. And it was unethical because there's nobody that can ever, no matter what they say, ever make me believe that Coca-Cola really did want to change the recipe and that they had no intention of ever going back to the old recipe. There is nothing you can say. There's nothing you can put in front of me. Unless you dig up the dude that was the CEO at the time and the chief marketing officer at the time, and they come to my house, sit down with my ass and have dinner and tell me to my fucking face that they had no intention of doing anything other than bringing a brand new Coca-Cola recipe to market and keeping it there. Would I ever believe that they weren't using fear-based marketing? This is what Anthropic is doing. And like what Sam said, it doesn't mean that the model isn't powerful. It probably is really powerful. But this one, the way that they are releasing this one, the hype that they are wrapping around it, yeah, this is more marketing than it is capability. Just saying. And this kind of fear-based crap, this is unethical marketing. I'm just going to say it. Anthropic at this point is being 100% unethical with marketing Claude Mythos. Let's move on to New York and Illinois, where they have banned government employees from insider trading on prediction markets. Does that mean they can do insider trading on traditional markets? I don't know. Maybe Sandra Lutz will have something about that. Decrypt.co. New York and Illinois became the latest states to ban government employees from using insider information on prediction markets this week, as the U.S. rushes to adapt to risks posed by novel trading platforms. On Wednesday, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed an executive order banning all state employees from using non-public information obtained in their job to make wagers on prediction markets. A near identical executive order was signed Tuesday by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, applying to state employees under his jurisdiction. The move comes just one day after New York sued crypto giants Coinbase and Gemini for offering prediction market trades in state. Letitia James, the AG, said that the platforms were offering wagers that constitute legally unregistered gambling schemes. Illinois has also taken legal action against prediction markets, claiming, or rather making, similar claims. The Trump administration, meanwhile, has aggressively come to the defense of the prediction market platforms themselves, which claim that they are exempt from state gambling laws and should be instead regulated at the federal level by the CFTC. And in today's executive order, Governor Hochul took aim at the Trump CFTC, arguing it has no standing to regulate prediction markets. Further, she added, even if the regulator did have such jurisdiction, it has failed to establish meaningful rules to prevent rampant insider trading in the new sector. Quote, despite the proliferation of wagering opportunities now facilitated by these companies, federal regulators have not, to date, required any meaningful ethical standards relating to the conduct of these markets, including protections against insider trading, she wrote. Nor, she continued, have they undertaken any meaningful enforcement actions to prevent insider trading, but they have instead focused on precluding states from exercising oversight authority over the gambling undertaken on these platforms, end quote. And then they talk about recent government scandals and all kinds of stuff, and we've already been through that, so I'm not going to rehash it. The CFTC oversight of the prediction market thing, brings up an interesting 10th Amendment issue. It's not specifically stated in the Constitution of the United States that I know of, in the body, not in the Bill of Rights, all right? In the body of the Constitution of the United States, there's nothing about gambling that I can see. Now, there maybe it's the Commerce Clause. I guess because they use that shit all the time, and it's like kind of vague. But let's say that it falls outside the Commerce Clause, that prediction markets fall outside the Commerce Clause, and nobody can find any place else in the Constitution where gambling, or rather prediction markets, would fit, right? There's nothing there. Well, then it's automatically goes to the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution. And the 10th Amendment basically says this: if it's not specifically stated in the Constitution of the United States, then it falls to each individual state to make the laws, rules, and regulations surrounding that thing that was not mentioned in the U.S. Constitution. It will be interesting. It would be an interesting situation to find out that the Commerce Clause does not apply to prediction markets, and that the states really can regulate these things on a state-by-state level. And if that were to end up being true, what the hell would happen then? I don't know. Last up for today, Polymarket. Speaking of prediction markets, oops, I just dropped something. Speaking of prediction markets, Polymarket traders win $37,000 after a Paris weather data glitch. It's raising suspicions. As well it should, dude. This is Stefan Kate writing for Cointelegraph. 2 Polymarket accounts have attracted suspicion after making $37,000 betting correctly on 2 unusual temperature readings of a weather station located in a major airport in France. The 2 weather-focused prediction markets focused on the highest temperatures in Paris on April the 6th and April the 15th, using the highest temperature recorded at the Charles de Gaulle airport station in degrees Celsius, according to Polymarket. French media outlet BFM TV reported on Monday that the temperature suddenly climbed to over 21 degrees Celsius on April the 6th, before dropping again immediately. The market resolved with the winner taking over $16,000. Meanwhile, blockchain analytics tool Bubble Maps reported a similar glitch for the April 15th market. The weather station showed 18 degrees Celsius most of the day, but then it suddenly spiked to 22 degrees Celsius before immediately dropping back. Some have questioned whether foul play was involved. Prediction markets are already facing growing scrutiny over insider trading and possible violations of gambling laws. Quote, that spike did not show on nearby stations, Bubble Maps analyst said, adding that just before the spike, one trader started buying no shares on 18 degrees C before exiting with over $21,000. Ruben Halali, I can't pronounce the name, a meteorologist, told BFM TV the temperature glitch was unlikely to be a natural event. Quote, such temperature variations seem very unlikely, especially on these 2 dates and over such a short period. We can imagine that an individual with a good understanding of how the sensors work intervened, resulting in temperatures rising by 2 degrees at the exact right time to validate a bet. Metro France, the official government weather agency of France, has reportedly made a complaint with the police unit, the Rossi Air Transport Gendarmerie Brigade, for alleged tampering with the operation of its automated data processing systems. How would one go about doing this? If you can't tap the data stream from the weather station, and dude, if you're able to tap the data stream and somehow or another finagle the number inside the data stream, then you're an insider at the Charles de Gaulle airport, because that's a huge airport. Security is tight. They're not just going to let anybody walk through. But what if you did this? What if you had a laser and you knew exactly where the temperature probe was, which means that you pretty much know the anatomy of temperature stations. What if you were able to accurately and precisely focus that laser beam onto the temperature probe for just long enough at just the right time from over a distance, like outside the wire, which means outside the fence of Charles de Gaulle Airport? You know, a really big, like a really big scope, like you would find on a sharpshooter rifle. And instead of a rifle, it's actually like a laser that has just enough wattage to bend the temperature to the upper range. And then immediately you just kill the laser and the temperature is going to come back down. That, I think that actually makes a lot of sense. A laser from a distance could do that. Now, how much did you spend on that laser? And it doesn't have to be a laser that, you know, cuts through steel or some bullshit like that. All you have to do is focus like a laser, especially like a reddish laser that might have a little bit of heat on it. And it's kind of not, they're kind of not supposed to, but if you have enough wattage behind those lasers, yeah, they're going to carry heat. They're going to be able to strike something and they're going to be able to carry heat. In fact, you can light a cigar off of some lasers that are used in, like at Pink Floyd shows. I know because there's a whole scene at the very first of the Pink Floyd concert video Pulse. If you've got that on DVD, or like I literally had a copy of that on VHS tape. That's how old that concert was. And even back then, the amount of power they were using for those lasers was enough for a dude to bend his head down into the mirror tray and literally light a cigar off of one of the main beams. So yes, these things definitely can heat up an object to a point where it's going to definitely increase its temperature. And I think that's what happened. I don't think it was an insider at Charles de Gaulle. And I know they didn't say that, but that's the only other way that you'd be able to manipulate that data, is to somehow or another modify the data stream as it's coming out, or physically just, you know, go up to the temperature probe on the weather station and hold your hand around it and let the warmth of your body do that. But I like I said, I think there's just too much attention on something like Charles de Gaulle Airport. It's not like out in, you know, a rural airport where crop dusters fly off from. I don't know, man. But see, this is the problem with prediction markets. And, well, actually, it's not a problem with prediction markets. The problems that are going to be highlighted in the human condition by prediction markets, and of course the human condition is going to be greed, is going to be really enlightening, because it's going to illustrate two particular things about the human condition. One is greed. Who will do it? And they're doing it for greed. I mean, come on, let's be fair. It's going to be greed. But the second part that it's going to highlight is just how inventive humans can get. It's not going to be just that, hey, somebody saw, you know, like, hey, I saw this prediction market. Somebody opened up this prediction market and I know exactly how to spoof this data in my favor, so I'm going to make a bet. It's going to go well beyond that. It's going to be, what can I do where I myself or a buddy of mine from across the world can make a market, and how do I manipulate that to my favor? Yeah, I think prediction markets are going to be in for a hell of a fight over this next decade in being able to just not straight up be made illegal in like every civilized country in the world. You'll have to, I don't know, go to, I don't want to say any country's name because I don't want to be accused of saying that they're a backwater. But just whatever backwater country you think exists, that's where a prediction market might be allowed to survive. But if they don't get a handle on this kind of shit, and I don't think that they will, because of human intuition, or rather human inventiveness, I don't think they will. Yeah, I think this gets bad. I think it gets real bad. I think it's going to have there's going to be some hilarious stories for us to tell each other as the longer these prediction markets are left to survive. All right, that is it. Like I said, it is a shorter show today. Can't be helped. I do hope y'all have a wonderful Thursday, and I will see you all on the other side.
This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.